Hello, TMV. Do you want to do the intro today? Do you even
No.
know what episode this is?
Oh,
You have no
absolutely not.
clue. You have
Absolutely
no
not.
clue.
Welcome to Cosmic Divide, episode number 20.
25!
Oh, I was gonna say 23.
Not too bad of an estimate. It's
Hmm.
25. Now that we're doing them on a weekly basis, we're kind of actually
Yeah, we're
starting to count
ramping them
upwards.
up. Yeah, there was like
Yeah,
3 months between one and two, and then
true.
it's like, and then
But
here we
now
are.
we've got you in the content dungeon for Ascend. You have to do this
Yeah,
every week, even though you constantly are complaining to me about having to talk to me every week. But,
yeah.
unlucky for you.
Mm.
Um, I will say next week, no Cosmic Divide because I will be in person in LA watching the games for VCT Americas. So I won't be able to do an episode. So you'll just have to watch Plat Chat. Unlucky, the worst podcast about Valorant. And
Unlucky,
here we go.
unlucky. That's
So,
tough.
TMV, tell me, how are you feeling about VCT so far? We're about midway through the season. I guess Pacific is into their last week.
Mhm.
Next week will be their last week, but we're kind of about midway for everybody else. How are you feeling about split number one? Do we know anything? Are we still confused about who's good?
I think I don't know. I think each league kind of has its own kind of vibe, I think right now.
Yeah.
To be honest. I think like we're gonna start with Pacific, but like Pacific to me is like even the bad teams, like you've seen improvement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone is like at least shown flashes of good, right?
Yep.
Even if it's
Even
not
bleed.
consistent.
Even
Even believe,
bleed, Yoi
yeah.
haters.
Yes. Everyone has shown like something, whereas for some of the other regions, I'd say, that's not true. So it's kind of it's a mixed bag right now. I do think that Valorant is a game where there's so much that can go wrong that it makes it a very difficult game to predict. Because if your
Mm,
aim isn't on, you'll probably lose. If your macro plans for the team you're playing isn't good, then you'll probably lose, right? Like if the map veto doesn't go your way, that might cost you the game. Like there's so many like different things that are maybe somewhat unrelated that could go wrong.
yeah.
Um, that can cost you a game. And so I do think and we're gonna start with Pacific, and we saw this in Pacific this week, right? Like where there was quite a few upsets. I'm looking at my pick'ems here. I got 4 of them wrong. Which so half right, half wrong, and there was some really big upsets in there. So yeah, I don't know. Like I'm trying to. I think a lot of people think that like this year has been worse than last year or something, and I think that you just forget how bad some games were last year, right? Like you don't remember all of the mid games last year
Mm-hmm.
because you remember the really good, you maybe remember the really bad, but then the middle just kind of just becomes a haze, and that'll be true for when we think about this year, next year, will be the same where we think like, oh yeah, oh it's so much worse this year, isn't it, than last year? It's like no, it like everyone like slightly is improving, I think, but there's just a lot
Yeah.
of mid.
And I think one of the big things too is that it feels like from week to week we're seeing like marked improvement from most teams
Hmm.
um, this year, whereas last year it was just kind of like a steady. This team's just
Yeah.
going to be kind of poor for the entire year, and that was
Yeah.
usually the case. Um,
100%.
so yeah,
It does make me think though, those people who were saying 10 teams wasn't enough. Like 10 teams was enough. Like especially with, we're adding teams each year as well. Like it was enough. We didn't need more. And I think
but
most
TMV,
people most people right now would probably be like, yeah, that was probably
but
enough.
TMV, think of all the players who dream of being professional Valorantes. They
Yeah,
must be
well,
allowed to do their dream. This is America
well,
after
yeah.
all.
Yeah, well, I think we're scraping the barrel for some of these teams. We were last year. Last year was not good. This year is better in terms of the actual rosters, I think, for the most part. We've ended up with much closer to like the actual top 50 or whatever players, I think, than we did last year in most of these regions. But let's just dive into it, shall we? Shall we
Yep,
just
let's do
go
it.
in? Let's do
Let's do
it.
it.
So we'll do it how we normally do it, I guess, which is actually previewing next week's games, but then talking about kind of what happened as we're going along. So we're starting in Pacific, as I mentioned before, and well, our first game for next week of Pacific, which just ended today, week 3. and now there's finally less games in Pacific, and then they're starting like their playoffs a bit earlier than everyone else. It's a bit weird. But anyway, the first game is a team that won a game. Bleed Esports are playing against Paper Rex. Let's
They
talk
did
about
it.
Bleed. They got
They
on the
did it.
board. How happy are you?
Well, I guess the context is kind of important because they beat DFM in a 2-1 fashion. It
Mhm.
wasn't, it wasn't like a wow, they looked incredible. They stomped DFM. But DFM is also not the worst team in the world. Well, they're fairly close, let's be honest.
Quick backtrack of what you realized you just said.
But I think it's good. Okay, because I was genuinely worried that Bleed were going to go 0-10 this
Yes.
year. They looked very bad at the beginning of the year.
Yes.
So the fact that they have a win now, it's weight off my shoulders, and probably it's a little bit of weight off of the players' shoulders as well.
Yes.
Unfortunately, they are playing Paper X and DRX in their final 2 games of the split, so they're very likely going to finish with this singular win that they got over DFM this week, which is unlucky. But at least they got one.
Yeah.
What is your opinion of the Bleed trajectory right now? Obviously they have a couple of tough games. Are they really making improvement? Was this sort of like they kind of put it together against one of the weaker teams? Do they have hope for Split 2? Where are you at with Bleed at the moment?
So obviously, yeah, for this next week, they don't really have a chance because the teams they're playing. But it was kind of a mixed bag in that DFM game because I'm looking at their first map on Lotus against DFM. I thought was horrific. Their attack side I thought was like, oh no. I thought, oh no, they're gonna lose. Like,
Oh
there's
yeah,
no
the
way.
Lotus attack was
Because
maybe the worst gameplay I've ever seen.
yeah, because their Lotus attack was truly abhorrent. Um, but then on Split and Ascent, like, I mean, obviously on Ascent, Zest just absolutely fried, which he did on an earlier Ascent game as well. I mean, apparently Zest just fries on Ascent.
Yep.
Apparently Silver Ascent, Zest, unbeatable. So yeah, Ascent, I thought like, oh yeah, Zest, he's pretty good, isn't he? And he just put him in any situation. It felt like he was just automatically just destroying whatever DFM were trying to do. But Split, I think, gave me kind of more hope for the team than maybe Ascent. Because yeah, Ascent Zest good. But Split, I thought like okay, like everyone kind of did decently, right? There wasn't like any standout like full carry performances, that we're just getting absolutely carried by like one player or whatever. Um, and I thought like okay, maybe there's something here, right? We win a 10-2 half on attack. We're playing double duelists, so you do need to have a good attack side, but they found enough there. I thought it was kind of an interesting decision to have Ye play Raze and Darion play Jet. I thought that was a little weird. Um, but it worked well enough, I guess, against another bad team. I think going forward to Split 2, man, I mean, you could argue that they're playing against they'll play within their group then, and you could argue that hey, T1 aren't doing that well. Global are a team they could beat. Maybe Team Secret have a bad day. You could make an argument that it could go good for them in stage 2 just based off playing their own group. But I still think there's enough weakness there to where I don't know. But then again, they're gonna have a long break to maybe figure it out. But I'm not too
Okay.
sure.
I have to ask you, should we do the the chamber merchants on Rays segment now, or should we do it when we talk about Demon One?
We can throw it in a bit now. Maybe we'll have to come up with a graphic for it.
Okay. Um, yeah. So I mean, I do think it's kind of interesting, like you said, that they put Ye on Rays, Darion on Jet. But I also think it's kind of important to remember that Darion is not a Rays player. Like he wasn't a Rays player last year. It was Juicy who was the Rays player. So they basically have 2 players who were Chamber and Jet mains for the majority of their career. And so one of them has to go in, and they've just decided, and maybe Ye has decided. We don't have any inside sources into like what the team discussions are like, unfortunately, but we keep hearing that Ye doesn't want to play Chamber. Ye wants to play Rays. He is making the decision that he wants to play Rays. And for better for worse, that's kind of what's been happening. Um, his raise, not that great. It's if we're just being honest, it's not that great. His movement is clearly not an experienced raise player's movement. His satchel usage is not great. His utility usage is mediocre at best. But somebody has to go in first, and since we're in a raise meta, you got to send somebody in. I think it's kind of unfortunate that you're taking your player who probably has the best aim on the team, who's best in a situation. I actually did an entire stream breaking down Ye's raise and his former use on Optic with Victor on the raise and Ye on the chamber, and like the positioning and how Ye would contact versus how Victor would contact on raise and stuff like that. And it's just night and day. He's meant to kind of be like this solo player that slowly walks in and uses his crosshair to basically clear angles. And now they're sending him in, and oftentimes it's to die so the team can get in. And especially in the first couple of weeks, a lot of that was Ye would go in and die, and the team would not get through the choke point because the coordination was off and the utility was bad. And so it made him look extra bad because he was just getting sent in to die, and then the team would not get anything out of it. So, I don't really have hope that he's going to become the next best raise player. But I guess if they can just kind of continue to build the teamwork and maybe lean on the firepower, like you said, Zest looked incredible. He's looked incredible the last 2 weeks, actually. Individually, he's looked really good, which is a good sign for me. And, finally they were playing with a little bit more confidence. I think Darion looked a little bit more comfortable. I still have major questions about Retla, if I'm being honest. He looks like he's not a tier 1 player, at least in terms of his like decision making and consistency and stuff like that. I'm sure he can like hang, but I would say that he's not of the caliber of the rest of the players on the team, unfortunately. So we'll see whether they continue to make moves or what. But going to split 2, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess let's go ahead and just do our prediction. Obviously, PaperX is winning this game. We don't need to spend too much time talking about that. But
one thing I do want to quickly talk about with PaperX though is they did lose. They did lose to Team Secret. Did you watch the game? Did you have any thoughts?
Watch the game. I did watch the game. To me, it looked mostly like a matchup problem. I think that Team Secret has always kind of been a little bit of a problem for PaperX because Team Secret tends to be more disciplined than most Pacific teams, and they refuse to play PaperX's game. And that makes PaperX uncomfortable, and they continually overextend into what Team Secret is doing and basically allow Team Secret to like trap them constantly. And I feel like that's exactly what was happening. And actually, we can talk a little bit about, because PaperX played 2 games this week. Because they also just beat Global. And they changed their comp on Sunset, which has been their best map this year. They changed it from a KO to a Breach now. So Forsaken went from KO to Breach. And I don't know if you saw the interview afterwards, but they asked Devi why they changed the comp. And he was basically like, we asked Jing, like, what do you need to become the monster that you were last year? And he was like, I need a different comp on this map. And so they changed it, and they looked better on Sunset.
I also think that adding into that, like Team Secret, they played PaperX, in their first comp. I think they changed back to a Sage, right? Like in the first time that they played against Team Secret, they were running like no Sentinel at all, right? I know that Sage isn't like a traditional like the other Sentinels or whatever, but they added in the Sage as well, which I think against Team Secret, like Secret refused to play them at their own game. Like they played that slower style, they played that more controlled style, and so PaperX, like Team Secret would like go towards A, everyone for PaperX would rotate. And NDD's lurking on the other side of the map. He's like, guys, B is completely free. They all run back. PaperX are confused. They don't know what's going on. They lose the round. That happened many times on Sunset. Whereas, obviously, if it gets to a late stage in a round, obviously you can use a Sage Wall on defense. It makes sense to me that they did change their comp at least somewhat there. But yeah, PaperX are going to beat Bleed. No real concerns about that one. Shall we move on to a game between 2 bottom teams where the pick might be somewhat more interesting? Global Esports against DFM, another team that got their first win. Now I don't know if you want to put a bit of an asterisk on it or not from Global's perspective, because they were playing against a team who had like a last minute sub.
Yep.
But they beat RRQ, and to be fair to Global, okay, RRQ were bad.
Mm-hmm.
But Global did like beat them, right? Like it,
Yes.
especially on map 2, like it wasn't close. Like, they beat them.
Yeah. I mean, I personally picked Global to win this, not
Did you?
knowing. Yeah.
Whoa.
Not knowing that RQ were gonna have a last minute sub because I think one of their players got sick, Estrella got sick or
Yeah.
something like that, so they had to sub somebody up. It wasn't like their assistant coach playing; it was their sub player,
Yeah.
two GE. But obviously that hinders RQ a bit. But I thought that this was going to be a matchup diff. I'm a big believer in stylistic differences of the teams playing a big role in the outcomes, and I think that's kind of what happened with Team Secret Paper X. I think that's kind of what led me to want to pick Global here, is that Global is the slowest team in all of VCT. They play so passively on attack. They are like, their entire game plan is just like allow these super aggressive Pacific teams to like run into us on defense, go looking for information, walk peeking into us with Polvi on the outlaw, the attacking operator, get a couple of picks that way, and then like slowly maneuver our way to a site. And I knew that was going to be good against RQ, and it was. RQ were just constantly just running into them ones or twos at a time. Global were picking them apart, and then just that slow style was just allowing them to kind of like grind their way to victory. So yeah, I mean, I'm honestly fairly impressed with Global's improvement. They're one of the teams that I think has taken like significant steps every week. Every time we see them, they look quite a bit better than they did the week before. And I think that's kind of continued so far. So I would actually pick them in this game pretty confidently. I think DFM are kind of hitting a wall where it's like, if May has a very good game, then they have a chance. And if he doesn't have a very good game, then they look like they are just kind of firepower diffed in a lot of these games. And we're also kind of seeing a bit of like, I don't know if it's like a lack of discipline, a lack of experience or what, but the first week that we saw DFM where they got their win and we're like, oh my God, this team looked incredible. We haven't really seen that from them since then. They've looked kind of like, I don't know if they're like playing the other team's game or what, but the discipline has not been very good. They're like, swinging by themselves too much. They don't have like the same kind of snappiness with their utility combos and like swinging off of each other. And that's a huge problem for them because skill difference, I think, is probably going to put them in the bottom tier of this league for the most part. Just individual player skill. And so they need that teamwork to be good to actually beat these teams. And I think against Global, I think Global have, again, I think the style that Global play will make DFM uncomfortable and probably pick them apart.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm Global on attack, I think against DFM, you can just run the old 100 Thieves CNED strat. You see May, you just run away.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
literally just go anywhere else, and you'll feel better about yourself and probably have a better chance of winning, to be honest. It's just, yeah, I think if Global can just not lose to May, then I'm with you. I think they should be favored. I still think against Paper Rex, like you saw, like they have their own firepower issues, but I think against teams that aren't up there in firepower, Global have a decent chance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, yeah, I would pick Global right now over DFM as well. Which, I mean, when DFM win that game 2-0 and stomp Global, I'm sure we're gonna look stupid, but it is what it is.
Yep.
Next game, okay, I can't wait to talk about this team because
Oh man.
I have no idea. I just did a power ranking of all the teams, and everyone was telling me to put this team in C tier, but I guess I still have some hope, some ray of hope that I put them at the like last team of the B tier, and that's
Okay.
T1.
Justify yourself.
Justify myself. I just still think that they have like the first event, right? Like kickoff still happened,
Yeah.
right? It still is games that team played together where they looked pretty good.
Yep.
And could have even beaten Paper Rex on that first map, especially in the game to qualify for Madrid. And even coming into like the first week, and yes, they lost to DFM, who apparently just had a life game against them, right? But even in that first week, I thought T1 actually still didn't look that bad. When they played against DRX, I was like, ooh, they don't look that good. Like this,
Yep.
that was the first game I was like, "Ooh, they actually looked bad there." But then they beat RRQ, and so it was like, "Okay, they're back." Like that's where I was coming. That's where my mind was at. Like coming into this week was
Yep.
like, okay, they lost 2 tough games against Paper X DRX. DFM played a life game against them apparently, but they beat RRQ. They're gonna be back. They're gonna go 3-3, make playoffs. They might not make it, but
Yep.
it's fine. But then they lost to Talon as well, and that should bring in doubts. Not that Talon are like awful, but T1, like where we were like coming in, you thought they could beat Talon.
It was the way that they lost too.
Yeah.
Because this team, I did a tier list of the teams, and I think I put them in 4th, even though they were 1 and 3.
Yep.
And it's just because like I'd seen them play well.
Yes.
And the level when they play well, they look like a top 4 team in the league.
Yes.
The problem is that they have not been playing like the top 4 team in the league very often this year. And I don't particularly know why, because it just seems like they just show up and they just have no discipline, or like all of their players are missing shots. And it's like super, super random which version of T1 you seem to be getting. And honestly, it's been random, trending towards not getting the good version of T1 most of the time so far this year. And so it's like very hard to evaluate them because it's obvious that they have the talent to beat a lot of the teams in the league, but they're just not recognizing that talent. And I don't know whether they're having issues with like the transition from Carpe to Xcurate as the IGL.
Yeah.
I don't know what exactly is going on, but they looked really bad this week. They looked very uncoordinated, out of sorts.
Do you think
I'm still picking them to beat Zeta, though?
Do you think we're underrating changing the IGL? Do you think things are like worse than they seem, and like that was actually quite a drastic decision that they've made, and like it was actually like a sign of like things are worse than you think from the outside?
Yeah, probably.
Because at the time, everyone was just like, "Oh, they changed IGL. Oh, they won a game. Oh, everything's fine." But I think in reality, it's very likely that things were falling apart, and it was kind of like a Hail Mary of like, maybe this will fix it. Hopefully, it will, without making a roster change mid-split, which wouldn't really make sense to do midway through the split. So it's kind of like our last throw of the dice trying that. Yeah. See, because again, you're right. Like maybe I shouldn't have put them in the B tier. Maybe I shouldn't have done, because you're right that they have looked like almost progressively worse.
Yeah.
But I just think like they've got Saya. Like Saya player is good. He is really quite good, and we know Xcure can shoot, and Izu has moments of brilliance. Okay, he's maybe not the most consistent player in the world, but he looks like a T1 player, and he fries sometimes. Right? Like, and so like you put that together, and then Rossi's like a good support player as well. I have my doubts about Carpe. I don't really get it. Most of the correct Overwatch, most of the correct Overwatch Widow players ended up being pretty good.
Yeah.
Like aim wise specifically. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there, to be honest. Yeah. Maybe he just got to the game too late. I don't know. But yeah. But you said that you would still pick them over Zeta Division, and I have to agree, because I think that Zeta Division are not very good.
No. I agree with you about Zeta Division, and I want to kind of mold about them a little bit.
You go.
Because I watched them this week. Who do they play again? God, they
played Gen G.
They played Gen G, and they came out stomping Gen G. The first map, it was split, right? Yeah, I think no.
They played map 2.
They played Yoru. They played Yoru Breach on one of the maps.
It was. Let me quickly check. It was split. It was split. Yeah. Yoru Breach with a chamber.
Yeah, so I think they started out 5-0 in this map, and they were kind of like plowing Gen G, and I was like, okay, Zeta can shoot. Like we know that this version of Zeta Division has more firepower than they've ever had. We know that they have potential to be a good team. Like they have the players can be a good team. However, it took one round for me to lose all confidence in them for the entire season. And I watched them. They go into a round. They have a lot of momentum. They have your ultimate on Dep. They have Breach ultimate. And what do? Do they use those ultimates together? No. They don't use either one of them. They use no ultimates. And they like dry contact into a stacked site and everybody dies. Do they use the ultimates in the next round? No, they don't. They play a normal round. Somebody gets picked off. Then they use the Euro ultimate in like a super random fashion where they're trying to combo with an Astro Wall and it like doesn't work particularly well. Or actually, maybe it worked okay. I can't remember. There was 2 times they used the Euro ultimate with the Astro Wall. I think one time it worked, one time it didn't. Anyway, I think the first time they used the Euro ultimate, they kind of just like randomly squandered it. It didn't get very much value. Dep died by himself. They didn't use the Breach ultimate. You know, Yoru goes in, he sees everybody. Should I use Breach ultimate? Yes or no? Okay, there's people on the site. We should Breach. Nope. They don't use Rolling Thunder. Okay? They get no value out of the Yoru ultimate. The next round, they panic use the Breach ultimate and lose that round as well. And I was like, coaches, hello? Do you have a game plan? Have you communicated how to use ultimates together to win rounds of Valorant? Because it does not look like you have. What the fuck are we doing? Literally, I could not believe how bad the game plan was. And after that point, they basically just lost every round, and Genji stomped them. And then the next map, they come in, and they get off to a lead again. Dep is frying. They're looking good. And then all of a sudden, they have no game plan. Like, they get to these critical rounds where it's like, all you have to do is just have a conversation with the players. Just do these couple things simply well. Don't get overcomplicated. Play the game normally. Use your ultimates to snowball your lead. But they're not doing it. They literally refuse to play the game correctly. And it has to be a coaching issue. Because these are experienced players. And they have to just, like, I was losing my mind. I literally was, like, screaming at my computer doing the VOD review. Just, like, what are we doing, Zeta Division? I don't know. But they look like dog shit.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. So my kind of theory on the game is that there's like, you know, when people talk about fundamentals, you've got your tech shooter fundamentals, right? Your trading, your spacing, your general aim and mechanics and stuff like that. Then you've got what I call Valorant fundamentals, right? Which is stuff like the Valorant economy. You know, you've got stuff like the ult economy, right? And how you use stuff like ults, right? Things like this. This is like, yeah, Valorant fundamentals. And I think by 2024, most decent teams, right? Like we're there with Valorant fundamentals, right? They think about ults. They play around opposing ults, right? Like those kind of things, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a particular pet peeve of mine, and clearly yours as well. when teams like aren't doing that in 2024, because that was something that was like 2022 was like the year that I would say like got kind of figured out, right? Where we're playing around ults and we're playing, you know, and we're figuring that kind of stuff out. That's when that got figured out. But yeah, that's tough for Zeta Division. So we're both picking T1 for that one.
Yeah,
Secret.
I have no hope that Zeta will be good this year. I think they're
okay.
I think they're cooked.
Yeah. Team Secret versus Talent. 2 teams kind of on the upswing though. Talking about T1 Zeta on the downswing. These 2 are kind of on the opposite train. Team Secret had a really good week. They had a bit of a rough start to the season, Team Secret, and you know, there was a lot of maybe early doubts there because they went 0-2, but then this week 2-0, beating Paper X, then beating DFM as well. Now, this is an interesting game, though, because Talon as well came out and beat T1 in their most recent game. Team Secret have already qualified for playoffs because of the way it's worked out. They technically can still win the group. I mean, they'd need Genji to lose, which probably isn't going to happen. But, you know, they do have still something to play for. And weirdly, like Talon as well, you know, as we're obviously getting towards the end here of Pacific, Talon are in a very good spot to qualify for playoffs as well now. They probably should qualify for the playoffs, and they definitely will if they win this game. So quite a bit on the line potentially here for both teams. Who are you picking in this? Because this is a bit of a tough one.
Yeah, this is... I think the first thing I want to talk about is Do you know who the number one Raze player in Pacific is right now?
I mean, if you're asking this question, talking about Team Secret talent, I'm gonna guess Jeremy.
Yeah, and it's not particularly close. He's like by far the number one Raze player in the region right now, and he has been kind of like a revelation for this team. He looks really good. He's been consistently excellent, especially on the Raze maps. His jet is a little bit less so.
Yeah. I mean, that's always been the case. That was the case with him last year. I mean, I remember
Yeah.
they were playing Raze on Haven because his Raze was just a little much better than his jet.
Yeah, but he's been excellent so far this year.
He's the second highest rated player in Pacific.
Yeah.
Only after Meko.
Envy has also been consistently excellent, and honestly, the old players, the old guard has also been really good this year. Like consistently, Jesse Vash, aside from the 017 loss, he's kind of been frying, honestly. Outside of that one game, he's looked quite good, and Borkum has been extremely impactful despite not being like this high fragging smokes player. He's looked quite good as well. I think in this game, I'm probably gonna go for Team Secret, but I don't feel confident about it, and the only reason that I'm doing that is because I feel like if we're going to go back to like these stylistic differences, I would say that Team Secret will be able to handle sort of the chaos that Talon brings to the game, because Talon are a chaotic team, and their chaos has worked well so far, and they have very, very good individual players who can just make things happen. And that's kind of how they're winning a lot of their games is like, oh, Surf randomly gets 4. Governor wins them around. Ban wins them around. Like, and it's not like they're super uncoordinated either. Like they do play a decent game of Valorant, but it is kind of a very free-flowing, chaotic game of Valorant. And to me, especially with the form that Team Secret is in right now, I feel like they're going to be able to handle that relatively well. And coming off the win against PaperX, like they're going to be pretty confident.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everything you just said. I was going to say the same thing about Secret. I think Secret for me, like last year as well with Secret, it was always like Envy clearly is very, very good, right? Envy is like one of those players who's playing on maybe like a middle of the pack team that you just watch him play. You're like, oh, this guy could play for like a top team. He would fit in, and it wouldn't, nothing would look crazy with that, right? That's always what Envy's been. And so for me, Team Secret have always been like, if they could just have someone else, playing at that level, they would then, like level up essentially and become that team. So, seeing Jeremy, statistically do very well, if they do have that, and as you said, like Borkum has been pretty good as well. Yeah, I think Team Secret should be able to handle the chaos. I think that in just like, they'll be feeling very confident coming into this game. I mean, you beat Paper Rex, like you're obviously going to be feeling good. They did still lose a map to DFM, so there's definitely still some.
Yeah.
It's not like they have become like a world beater team. This definitely still think will be close. I could see a 2-1 here for sure. But yeah, I'm with you. I like where Team Secret they're going. Yeah, I'm picking Secret as well. You'll pick Talon?
I'm gonna go to Talon just to be different. Because I feel like we're agreeing way too much so far this episode. And also, I don't know if you saw the interview with Fraud that he did with Valo Asia.
No.
But he was talking shit. Not Fraud, Frost. He was like, they only beat PaperX because of a matchup issue. They're not going to 2-0 us. There's no chance. Show this to their coaches and players. We're going to beat them, basically. And I was like, okay, that's a lot of confidence. I'm down.
That.
I'm down.
I like that. I mean, I don't know if you also saw he was in a Reddit thread talking about the old Furia team he was with.
Oh yeah.
I'm just calling people out basically. So
yeah.
Maybe he had a drink or two. Just feeling confident about it. Anyway, let's move on to another stomp. Poor Bleed have to play PaperX and DRX in the same week. DRX beat Gen G. This was the kind of highlight game. I initially on this show last week said I'd pick Gen G because you picked DRX just like you did just with Talon. But then I changed my mind before the game started because I knew DRX were going to win. And I always believed that DRX were going to win because they simply looked like the better team. And in my opinion, look like right now the best team in Pacific. And I would be surprised if they don't make it to Shanghai because they should win this game. They should win the group. And then they should only have to win one game to make it to Shanghai, which I think they'll do. Any disagreement?
No, I mean DRX looked like the real deal. Like that was my takeaway after they beat Gen G. I thought that they might beat Gen G, um, just because of how they've been playing, and Gen G has shown like a lot of their stuff, and they haven't really evolved too
Yeah.
much as a team. And I
Yeah.
didn't think that, it's like the solo versus glow matchup. We've kind of had this back and forth, new turn beat Vision Strikers, but then they kind of had their number when Solo became a coach, and then now Solo kind of countered them and went to Masters Madrid. But now I think it's kind of swinging back the other way, and I think that whatever it was with, I don't know whether it was the change to Bane over Flashback, because maybe they would have done the same thing with Flashback. You
Hmm.
never know, but whatever they're doing right now is clicking. Like
Yeah.
Mako, number one rated player in the region.
By a
Um,
mile.
he's back. he's fully back. He was having kind of a quiet like end of
Yeah.
last year and then also at kickoff, but he's back. He's frying. Stacks is playing with a lot more confidence than I've seen in a long time. Like he's just kind of like making these plays that we remember from like
Yeah.
2022 when DRX was really good. Um, and dude, Foxy 9, he's been
That's been
banging.
the big difference. Yeah.
He's been banging on Sentinel, primarily the Cypher, but just in Sentinel in general, he's looked really, really strong. It's kind of one of those things. You take a duelist who's crazy good, super aggressive. You put him on a role that doesn't allow him to like overheat too much, and you just have like crazy firepower at a position that oftentimes is in a position to like win the round if they can just hit their shots. And he's doing that consistently. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I kind of agree that they'll probably go to China. Um, as long as they can just not choke, which this team has
Mhm.
had problems with in the past with different
Yeah.
personnel, but with Bane and Foxy maybe getting their first shot to like have this opportunity, maybe there's a little bit of shakiness there, but they look
Yeah.
really, really good. And even if they do lose a game, they probably still go through in like the third spot, probably.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, in that Gen G game, like they very clearly, I mean, particularly on Bind, I remember thinking like they had a very good plan for Gen G,
Mm-hmm.
and how to approach Gen G's defense side. And I think Gen G did suffer. Well, I mean, we might as well get to them now, right? Gen G are playing
Yep.
RRQ in the final game. Let me talk about Gen G for a bit because they definitely did suffer. That we have played a lot of games and people know what we're doing. Because,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, like DRX on Bind. Gen G basically most rounds put their Cypher camera kind of deep in shower in just like the little cubby as you kind of walk into shower on the right, like the little place there. They pretty much always put their camera in there. It's like a good camera because you have to get pretty deep into shower, but they don't really run like trap plays off it or something like that, right? They don't try and like,
Right.
punish you
Just
for
passively
it.
holds showers.
So like DRX Foxy 9, he's just walking in there almost every single round, just destroying that camera on his own, right? Getting shower control because they know like, oh, you'll put your camera there, but you won't ever actually, do anything to, dislodge someone from taking it. So like very clearly DRX had a good plan of like that's just something that we can very easily exploit.
Mm-hmm.
And then Genji didn't know what to do with someone like consistently always coming in shower just on their own, right? And that's where one of those things you feel like no one would do that against you in a scrim,
Mm-hmm.
right? No one would just consistently every round be walking up into shower on their own. So it's not something you've
Right.
probably ever had to think about in a scrim. Like, what do we do if someone is just consistently doing this? So Genji didn't have the answers, and there was just a lot of little things like that that I think DRX exploited. Now, against RRQ, I think Genji should just be able to aim diff, use their
Yep.
strats that they already have, just win because they're just better. In my opinion. What say
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think RRQ, like, they clearly have some talented players. I think Jemkin has looked quite good, and some of their game plan stuff is fine, but they also tend to fall into like the sort of like middle of the pack team mentality, or like if a team is kind of better than them, oftentimes they'll just kind of like start trying to win the game individually, and then at that point things go massively worse instead of sticking to the game plan most of the time. I think that's probably what's going to happen against Gen G. Like Gen G will come out, maybe they'll win a pistol, maybe they'll even win the bonus, and then RQ will just kind of start being like, "Uh-oh, like I have to win the round for my team." And so I think this could be fairly one-sided. Maybe it'll be a close game. Maybe they'll rein it in a little bit. And like on an individual player level, I think RQ can hang. I don't know. They're definitely
Yeah.
not better than Gen G, but I think they can hang. So maybe it'll be kind of like a grindy match for Gen G,
Yeah,
but
I could see that.
they should take care of it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. RQ are going to be ruining that. Like, that was the game that Australia was sick for, and they had to have
Yeah.
a sub against Global because, like, they win that, they have a decent chance of making playoffs.
Yeah.
Now,
Now they're in trouble.
now they have to beat Gen G, so it's like that's rough.
Yep.
Anyway, shall we move on to EMEA?
Let's move on to EMEA.
Cool. Okay, EMEA. God, it feels like an age ago.
I know.
I guess it is, but
Yeah.
it does feel like a different timeline that these EMEA games were played. The first game in EMEA this week is Team Liquid versus Heretics, and now all the memories for me are flooding back of that Team Liquid Giants game that I had to watch. And oh my
boy.
goodness, the Team Liquid Giants game, which was just full. I mean, the biggest fake comeback you will ever see from Team Liquids on Lotus. Like, I can't. What exactly was it? Let me try and find the game.
Oh, boy.
How much down were they? They win the last 6 rounds in a row to then take us to OT, including multiple like 1v3s. Enzo with an Odin went to 1v3.
You have one of the best clips of the year with your
and when
wasting my
GG,
time.
Yeah, wasting my time, Team Liquid, and then Enzo wins it, and so they just waste even more time because then they take us to overtime and then take a lead and get a match point and then still lose 16-14.
Yeah.
Now they did end up winning that game.
I know. Crazy.
It was a very, very bizarre like ascent as well, where I mean, again, it looked like Liquid were kind of cooked. They're down 8-4. You're feeling good about Giants, but then Liquid and a comp that I don't know. I mean, I guess you're playing Viper Cypher, but not the default comp, managed to kind of clutch it out at the end and beat Giants. Do I think any differently about Team Liquid because they beat Giants? No. But they are playing Team Heretics, who talk to me about Team Heretics because they lost to BBL. So where are you on them right now?
Yeah, I mean, EMEA has been very, very messy this year. And it's like, we'll get to Fnatic, we'll get to all these teams. But it's like every time that I think I have an idea of what's going on in this region, it's like, nope. Do we even have a tier? Is there any? Is everybody in one tier? I don't know.
Koi are not in the same tier.
No. Okay, Koi do ensure that there is a tier gap at some point, but where do we draw that line? I mean, good lord. Okay, so the Liquid game, it gave me a bit of confidence for Liquid because it wasn't just like a mental collapse, where, in my opinion, Giants played better than Liquid, but Giants still lost.
Yeah. Can I just quickly say as well?
Yes. Yeah.
Enzo, I'm begging you. I am begging you. You can't just run a fake with a Silver drone. You can't. It needs more. You can't just have a Silver drone be main and think, fuck it, they're gonna rotate everyone right now because of this Silver drone. It doesn't fucking work like that, okay? Please never fucking do it again because it literally cost them multiple rounds. Stop it.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm just gonna talk about both Giants and Liquid in this one thing because
that's fine.
Giants are essentially Liquid of like 2 weeks ago, which is that they can't get it over the line, right?
That's such a good comparison.
They're like, they have decent players, but they just can't make it happen, right? And that's kind of where Liquid were the last couple of weeks. And so, I mean, going into this Team Liquid Heretics game, I mean, what happened in this BBL game? I can't even really remember. I guess everybody in BBL was just shooting back and Heretics was not. And like this was like the first game where we saw like a really bad performance from Miniboo. Like he got kind of owned by everybody.
Yes, they got heavy aim diffed in this game. Like, it felt like a rolling snowball down a hill that just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Because like, especially on Sunset, Heretics were 5-0 up, right? It was like, okay, they lost Split. I mean, and to be fair, they were 5-1 up on Split as well. So like, as soon as BBL just started winning around, it was like a different game, and then BBL just couldn't win. I mean, they won both pistols, both bonuses on Sunset, and lost
Hmm.
13-10. Like, so that tells you, like, basically as soon as the guns came out, Heretics stood no chance in this game, and they got, yeah, heavy aim diffed. BBL played well, I thought, as well, but it was not a good look for Heretics because, like, we've been thinking of this team as, like, when they went to Madrid, as like, actually their firepower, especially for Miniboo, is pretty good. Maybe this is a sign that, if Miniboo isn't hitting, that this team is going to struggle.
Yeah. One other thing I do want to bring up about Heretics that I think is maybe part of the reason that they looked so off, because they just kind of looked off overall. Like Miniboo was getting owned. He went 2-8 on first kills, first deaths on Sunset on the Neon, which has not been the case ever so far.
No.
But they were kind of making like this huge deal. It's like, oh, this is Patatek's last game. Thank you so much for your help this year. He's now released. Maybe that was kind of weighing on the team. Like we gotta win this for him. Send him off with a win. Maybe there's just some like weird vibe stuff where he's he knows he's leaving, and who knows. It's really hard to know what's going on there. But they definitely just looked kind of out of sorts, and then BBL just really just shot back, and they looked very aggressive and decisive with how they were playing. Now Heretics is playing with Woot next week or this week for this game. What is that going to look like? Woot is unbelievably skilled, but we have no idea what he's going to look like in this team. Maybe he'll fix everything. Maybe Patatek is the glue guy. Maybe they'll start downward spiral. I honestly don't know. There's no way for me to predict how good they're going to look this week.
I actually think that this has come at a perfect time for them.
Really?
I think because I think that they had the problem in that Heretics game of when they started losing rounds. I think that they suffered from that, and they are still a very inexperienced young team, right?
Mm.
Who won't have played a lot of games in their pro careers of like, we are the dominant favorites here, we're going to win. And so I think when they started losing rounds against BBL, they panicked. They didn't know, like, wait a minute, we were meant to win this game easy. Like, what do you mean? Like, this is a challenge. Like, what's going on?
They didn't know how to like deal with being pressured, basically.
The pressure of like, oh no, this team is fighting you. Like, you aren't gonna win this game easy. Like,
Right.
do something. And I don't think they knew how to deal with it. But I think that the mental reset now of like changing a player, I think will help them because they don't need to worry about that game now, right? Like the BBL game, it's like, well, we're playing with a different team now, right? So it's like it's a different vibe, it's a different mentality, right? Like it's kind of like a fresh start again, and I think that I think will be good for Heretics to get that fresh start, to be playing against a team that isn't great, right? So it's not like you're going to need to play an absolute S tier game to beat Liquid. If Heretics show up and they play a B plus game, they'll probably win, right? And I think that with the mental reset, even if maybe the strats are a bit more wonky, even if like the coordination maybe is still a bit wonky with Woot or whatever, I think that they're going to the vibes will be good for like a kind of fresher start. Something new, something exciting, and I think they'll win.
Okay, so no belief in Liquid then after beating Giants, huh?
Go on, you pick Liquid.
I don't want to. I'm gonna pick Heretics. Yeah, I'll believe in the firepower diff. I'm gonna be honest. I still have major questions about Liquid's like game plan and calling. Like they definitely have some good players, but
You don't like the drone fakes?
I don't love their strats basically. But
Okay.
let's move on to another battle of the French teams. We got one fairly recently, a couple weeks ago, with Carmine Corps Gentlemates. Carmine Corps won that one. Now we have Vitality against Gentlemates.
Vitality win this one.
Vitality are going to win this one, and I don't think it's going to be particularly close. I think they're trending upwards in a big way. I have them like number 3, I think, in my European power rankings. I think they looked very good against Foot. And they've got 2, just absolute free wins in the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, they should just win. I mean they play. This is the thing. Vitality have ended up 2-1. I mean they should top their group. Like really. They should top their group. They're 2-1 right now, but they've played against the 3 hardest team in the other group in Navi, Foot, and Heretics. They now play against Gentlemates, Giants, Koi. That should be 3 wins. Vitality, they should top the group. And if Vitality are serious about making it to Shanghai, they shouldn't drop a map in those games because they should just be better than those teams. So yeah, Gentlemates, look, they play a very one-dimensional style, and I think the longer that a season goes on, the easier you are to read. Everyone knows what comps you're playing. You know, it just becomes easier and easier to play against. I don't think they're very good.
Yeah, the novelty of the Phoenix on every map with Natank hopefully carrying you to victory is wearing quite thin, and the rest of the players are getting exposed, I think, for being inexperienced and making kind of poor decisions around him a lot of the time.
Yep, 100%. Next game, though, after that, this one is an interesting one. Fnatic are playing against Foot. Oh boy, where to start? Let's start with Fnatic, who last
Easy
week
win for
played
Fnatic,
against...
right? They're the best team in the world.
Well, if they could play Gentlemates and Koi every week, then sure. But this is going to be more of a challenge, because Fnatic did beat Gentlemates and Koi, and outside of a very bizarre bind, where they were 11-3 down and won, 13-11, Fnatic looked good on the other maps, I would say, against bad competition.
Did they look good?
On the other maps?
Yeah, I mean, they looked pretty good.
Bind, it started pretty rough. Anyway, they're now playing Foot. Let me talk about Foot for a second. Guys. Why on earth are you doing what you are doing? You've got the players to be the best team in EMEA, I would say. It's all there. I genuinely believe that they have the players, they got the talent to be the best team in EMEA. But they have a bit of a problem. They're a bit like me in this sense. This is something that I do sometimes as well, where you can't just play Pokemon Platinum. You have to play a Nuzlocke version of Pokemon Platinum. And you can't just play a normal version of a Nuzlocke Pokemon Platinum. You have to add in extra rules as well to make it even harder, so that you end up having to play the game 50 times before you manage to beat it, because you need the right RNG. You need things to go your way. You need to not die at this crucial moment. That's what Foot are doing right now, because they are playing on fucking not just hard mode, extra hard mode. They're playing a different game with their comps, because
you don't like the deadlock?
There is no fucking way. I mean, the deadlock was one of the worst things I've ever seen. It hurt my soul. As I said in the video, it hurt my soul. Honestly, that's not even the main offender, though. The main offender is Icebox. Icebox is the even bigger offender, because their Icebox comp, I'll just read it out for you, for those of you who don't know. It's Sova, Viper, Sage, KO, Jet. And you may have just heard those list of names of agents that I read and not thought, well, none of that is that weird. And no, that's a problem in and of itself, because they are playing a no Killjoy comp, essentially, a no true Sentinel comp here on Icebox. But they're also playing a bunch of agents that everyone knows how to play against as well. So you're getting none of the benefits of playing a weird comp. And also you're playing on hard mode.
The lurks in this game.
Sort it the fuck out, Foot. Yeah, the lurks in this game.
Oh my god, so many times. So many times.
Every fucking lurking through mid 2A every fucking time.
God,
and it was 3 free kills every fucking round.
I'm remembering it now. Nobody was calming at you. Everybody's just looking towards belt, and somebody's just walking in the middle and shooting them in the side. Oh my god.
It was fucking ridiculous. And so and look, their Lotus comp as well. Look, it had a nice little surprise against what was it, Kami Core, and they won that game. Good for you. Good for you, Foot. Nice little surprise win. Don't ever play that kind of comp again, because you will fucking lose. Play a normal comp, and you will win, because you are good. And I don't like playing normal comps. But the thing is, you're a team that if you do want to experiment, and sometimes you experiment and the comps maybe make at least some theoretical sense, but the comps that they're going for, in my opinion, don't make theoretical sense on some of these maps, right? Like, The Icebox comp doesn't make theoretical sense. The Lotus comp they're going for doesn't make theoretical sense for how the map needs, like what the map asks of you. The comps don't make sense. So sort it the fuck out. Stop smoking whatever you're smoking. And if you have to play something normal, even though I don't like that, do it.
Okay. So who are you picking?
I don't know! Because this is the thing. I still have major foot belief. Like, I want to believe in this team. I like this team. I think they're on their day, they're crazy, crazy good. But I need to see them change their comps. I'm picking Fnatic. I'm holding my nose and picking Fnatic is what I'm doing.
Yeah. I mean, I can't disagree with anything you've said so far, because when Foot have looked good, they have looked nearly unstoppable firepower-wise. Like, they will simply just shoot you better than you can shoot them. Every single person on this team has looked incredible at some point this season. And honestly, the CNED full-time duelist, even on Raze, not too bad. But the pieces around him and some of the decisions that they're making have been bizarre and half-baked. And what worried me the most, and the reason I'm going to pick Fnatic, is that Icebox game. The fact that they know they have this problem in their comp. They must know, especially after it happens to them in one round. Oh, look, somebody just walked up middle in the first 15 seconds and shot us in the head from the side when we weren't paying attention. Surely the next round will pay attention to that or do something to mitigate that. Nope, doesn't happen. Happens a third time. At that point, I'm like, are we even speaking to each other? Like, what is going on? How is nobody saying, hey, watch middle, watch kitchen, wall it, do the tube wall if you must. Anything to stop people from lurking on you in middle. And the fact that that didn't happen, I mean, that's very worrying to me. And, you know, I have a lot of questions about Fnatic still. I'm not going to lie. Like, the fact that they got plowed on Bind by Koi of all teams and looked like they did not know what was going on is very concerning to me. But I think I just have to believe that Foot will not be able to adapt in time, and Fnatic will look at them and be like, okay, guys, this comp has a problem. Let's exploit that problem. They'll at least be able to do that, and so I think I'm with you. I'm going to pick Fnatic. But, man, I mean, if Foot play normal comps and they're just shooting back, I'm very concerned for Fnatic as well.
I think Foot have the, like, you know, when people joke about, like, oh, people must be letting them win in scrims to make them convince them to play the comp. Like, I think Foot don't have that problem. Foot have the problem of they will just probably mow everyone down in scrims. Like, against anyone playing even slightly loosely, I'm sure Foot just absolutely dumpster them in terms of their aim.
Yeah.
And so they are just convinced that any comp they play will work because it works for them in scrims because they just destroy everyone in scrims. Like, that is what I think is going wrong for Foot. They're too good. They're too good in scrims. And so they think they can play whatever the fuck they want and it'll work. And it won't against teams playing seriously.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Anyway, let's move on to another Turkish team who showed some promise. As we were kind of mentioning before, against Team Heretics, BBL, they're playing against Na'Vi, and I actually think, honestly, that might help Na'Vi. I don't think, and Na'Vi lost a map to BBL in the first game of the season as well at kickoff. Mm-hmm. I think that those two things combined will help Na'Vi. They won't look at this as like an easy game. They won't fall into the trap. They'll be like, we need to take this game very seriously. BBL can definitely shoot back, and I think that Na'Vi will be aware of that and know we need to take this seriously, and therefore they won't fall for any traps, and they'll still beat a team that they are better than.
Yeah, Na'Vi are the best team in Europe right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I feel. You know, I mean, we get treated by a Na'Vi Fnatic match in the last week of the season of Split 1, which is going to be really fun, and that will kind of determine probably who's number 1, who's number 2. But my current feeling is that with all the problems that Fnatic have been having so far, nothing has looked particularly clean for them. I think, and granted, Na'Vi has had their own little, you know, whoa, what's going on here? but it seems to me like they are kind of starting to realize who they are. Especially the Carmine Core game kind of made me see that, where it's like, oh, okay, you know, that's the Shao I remember. Artist looks really good in this kind of supportive role. He's kind of like found his home almost, which is interesting because remember the last time he played with this team, he was the chamber merchant, right? He was the guy that was winning them a huge amount of the rounds on chamber. And yes, they also had like incredible pop-off rounds from Sugetsu and Shao and Zippin and stuff like that. But he's actually really fit into this team quite well, playing the breaches and the KOs. And, again, it's one of those spots where you have a player who has very good firepower playing a role that oftentimes doesn't have the highest firepower. And the value there is very, very high. So, yeah, I'm liking what I'm seeing from Navi. I think you're right that they'll be like, okay, let's take care of business here. Let's get this one over with and start prepping for Fnatic. But let's not overlook BBL either. And I think that BBL will probably come in with the confidence of like, yeah, we can aim diff people, and they're gonna get, they're gonna wake up. They're gonna realize that Navi is not a team that they can just aim diff very, very easily, and it's gonna be a problem.
I mean, I'm looking back at this Karmine Core versus Navi game. I actually can't remember Bind at all. Karmine Core 137, I don't remember anything about that map. I do remember the Sunset and Split where Navi kind of destroyed Karmine Core, to be honest. And I think really, again, just exploited some of Karmine Core's naivety.
Especially that last map, it felt like it was extremely one-sided.
Yes, it did. But yeah, I'm feeling good about Navi. Then two teams. I mean, we kind of already alluded to Giants. They're like
Vitality and Karmine Core winning these games. That's all I'm gonna say.
Karmine Core will beat Koi despite some of their weaknesses. Poor Koi. Will Koi win a game this year?
Not in this split. Maybe next split with a different roster, but not this split.
Yeah, that's pretty rough. Okay. That's the EMEA. Anything else to add about EMEA?
I guess my only question is like, do we have a sense of who's good in this region? Like we kind of do. I guess who would your top 4 teams be?
The top 4 teams in EMEA right now would be number 1, Navi.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 and 3 would be a coin flip between Vitality and Fnatic.
Okay.
Although I honestly think I'd put Vitality 2 right now, to be honest. And 4 I would put Foot.
You put Foot over Heretics and Karmine Core?
Yeah, I put Karmine Core 5 and I put Heretics 6.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, Foot literally beat Karmine Core.
They did. And
it wasn't like I thought they were clearly the better team. I have big. I mean, look, if Foot play some normal comps, I would put Foot above Fnatic as well, and maybe above Vitality.
Wow. Okay. So you have very big belief in them. I am not quite on board with that. I think I still maybe rate Heretics highly, but maybe that is.
I mean, with the change of route,
hope.
Like we'll see. Like obviously that could make a big difference. We'll see, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we're in agreement for the top 3: Navi, Fnatic, Vitality in some order. And then a little bit of a tier gap, perhaps, at this point, and then below. Okay, cool. Let's move on to the Americas region, which is in kind of a weird spot right now because we are in Super Week. We're in the middle of the week, so we don't have all the data currently. But we've had some interesting games. We've had some stomps. We've had some super teams who are maybe not so super, and we've had some super teams who were maybe not so super and potentially on Fraud Watch. Maybe they are a super team. So yeah, let's get into it.
Okay. I mean, who's on a bye next week? Let's try and find who's that team. I mean, it's tough off the top of my head. God, it's like looking through a little maze here, trying to figure it out. Who is it? Can you see? Is it Lev?
Lev is on a bye, yeah.
Okay, well, let's talk about Lev first then. Very easy team. I mean, they've still got to play G2 this week. But thus far, last 2 weeks, they beat Sentinels, and then they destroyed NRG. We'll get into NRG. I have some things to say. But Lev just looked really good. Like, there's really not too much else to say. Like, I again, in this everyone team power rankings of all the teams right now,
Hmm.
I think that them and Sentinels are the 1-2 right now, just based off how they've played. Do you disagree?
No, I don't. I think that's pretty spot on. I think we were pretty. Both you and I were kind of selling the narrative that Lev, maybe has some issues, some chemistry problems. Maybe this team's gonna implode. And to be perfectly honest, I think those are still legit views. Like after week one, the way that they lost to Cloud9, the way that they kind of just crumbled, you could like see them crumbling mentally in real time.
Yeah, I'm still convinced that had they lost that overtime Lotus
Yeah,
to Sen,
yeah,
it might have happened. That
I know.
Aspas drops 47 and he loses, and he's just
Yep,
like, guys,
yeah. Give me
come
some
on,
other
come on,
players.
guys. Yeah, it could have happened. It genuinely could. And instead they win, and it's like, we flipped a coin there.
We're in a different timeline now.
Yeah,
We're
and
in the
now we're in a
Lev is
different
good
timeline.
timeline. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, for real. Like, who knows what would have happened if they had lost that to Sentinels? Because I'm pretty sure that Sentinels wins that game, they probably win the next map, right?
Yeah.
If we're being honest.
Yeah. You win an overtime like that, yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's not what happened,
When they're in a different timeline.
Lev smashed NRG. They did not look like they belonged in the same server. It was like everything Lev was doing was working. Osbos, I mean, Demon One was talking his shit and not backing it up. I mean, okay, Osbos is the best duelist in the world. It's not even close. There's nobody that compares to him.
Duelist, but the word player is the one you're looking for.
Yeah, it's not close. It's not close. I was doing I was doing my whole like raise or my whole duelist analysis of people who have been Jet chamber people moving to playing Jet raise, and I was looking at all the stats, and like usually what you'll see is the duelists who are playing Jet and raise now, they'll either be much higher in their stats on Jet and rating and everything will be much better on Jet, or it'll be much better on raise. Like for example, Kesnet much better on raise than Jet. Zekin much better on raise than Jet, and then you look at other people like I think Miniboo much better on Jet than raise, and some of these other big duelists, much better on Jet than raise, etc. Osbus exactly the same. He's like exactly the same rating, basically the exact same stats. A little bit more damage on raise because obviously raise has more damaging abilities. Better KD on Jet because Jet has the escape. Same type of performance, doesn't matter. And the only other player who's even remotely close to that consistent, Buzz, interestingly, for DRX. But yeah, Oswas is insane. King is insane. His Omen has looked like prime 10's Omen, maybe even better. But yeah, I mean, Calm is like everybody's like Tex. I actually have to give some love to Tex because after week one, watching him play Gecko, I was like, dude, this guy is clueless. This Gecko utility is really bad. And then this last week against Energy, his Gecko utility was great. He was like, he was using Wingman at the right time. His Dizzy placement was good. Everything that he was doing was good. He was following Osbus in, trading him out, like playing together with the team. He looked much more connected. It's obvious that this team has been putting in a lot of work during practice in between the games, and they're taking like significant steps every single week. So yeah, I mean, there's a real chance where this team is just the number one team in the region, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, the vibes now in Lev, like that was always the thing for me.
They have to be
right?
so good, yeah.
Yeah, when you get on a team like this, that everyone's from different cultures, everyone's from different backgrounds, everyone has like different levels. You got some players who have won champs, you got some players who, have maybe been in tier 1 but haven't, done that much necessarily. Like, if the vibes are bad in that atmosphere, right? There's like that was always the thing. It's like, who's gonna change the vibes? Because you're all from different cultures. You're all from like you speak different languages. Like, who's gonna be the rallying like together person? But when things are going well, like none of that fucking matters. Like when things are going well, it's like everyone's just happy. You're turning up, you're winning, you're confident, you trust that okay, the players that I'm with, we're a super team. Oh yeah, we are a super team because we're destroying other super teams.
Right.
And they're barely getting. We're almost 13-0ing them. Right. Like you get confident and like, okay, yeah, the guy next to me, he's fucking good. right?
Yep.
And I can trust him, and like, and I think that will just make the world of difference for Lev. And now, like, I would be shocked if they lost a game. I mean, honestly, apart from playing maybe against like Sentinels in like a grand final or something, right, for Americas, I'd be
Mhm.
shocked if they lost any other game. Like, genuinely, I'd be shocked.
Mhm.
Because I just don't think anyone. I just don't see a world where anyone can get to that level that they'll be playing at, for these next couple of weeks. So yeah.
Yeah. So they played G2 in a couple of days. We picked them over G2, or at least I did when we did the
Yes,
picks
I
in
definitely
last
did as
episode.
well, and I'm feeling good about that pick.
Yeah, I mean G2 they won their match earlier this week over Furia, but I mean it's just a free win. Furia they look like a tier 3 team right now. Like,
Yes.
they wouldn't even win a game in challengers potentially. Is how bad they look. So yeah, okay. That's enough about Lev. We'll see how they finish out the season. They play Crew in the last week. But yeah, I'm a little sad I actually don't get to see them when I go down to LA. That would have been fun to watch.
Yeah. Yes, that would have been fun to watch. Anyway, the next week's game. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of a bit weird. We'll probably talk about the teams but let's talk about next week because G2 do play against MIBR. So G2, yeah, they're probably going to get beaten by Lev.
Mm-hmm.
That aside, though, they did beat Furia, stomp them, as you say. Where are we at with G2? Like,
Man.
where do G2? Do they have like? Are they like a playoff team, but nothing further? Are they not a playoff team? Are they could they maybe surprise someone and make it to Shanghai even? Like, where are you on G2?
Well, I mean, unfortunately for them, they're in a very tough group, right? Because Crew is playing well, Cloud9 is playing well, and Sentinels is obviously there. And I mean, will Energy wake up after getting stomped by Leviathan, or are they kind of a fraud team? I don't know. We'll talk about that later. I have a hard time believing that G2 will make playoffs in this group, unfortunately, just because their group is very hard. I think they would in the other group probably, but in this one, I don't know.
I mean, there is a possibility that we do get 4 teams from this group.
That is true.
Yeah. That is a possibility. But even if that was the case, I actually feel like G2 would be the team that would miss out in that scenario. Because in that scenario, probably what has to happen is Crew have to beat Loud, and that means the Crew will probably make it. And then Cloud9, they play Fury and MIBR, and they're already 3-1. And they'll be favored in both those games. So they could easily win 5 games as well. This is a weird thing. Cloud9 might win this group, even though I'm not sure they're that good. But they might win this group, weirdly enough, the way it's panned out. They just played Lev at a good time, I guess. And so, yeah, G2 might be the team that misses out, kind of weirdly.
So, I mean, I think G2 are kind of like a solidly like 7th, 8th team in Americas. Like they're definitely better than some of the bottom teams. But I think they're just that team that is going to beat the teams that are clearly worse than them, that have like no game plan and bad strats.
They're the Giants.
They're not the Giants. The Giants have no idea what they're doing half the time. G2 is just a team that like.
I mean, Giants from last year. Last year's Giants.
Okay, yeah.
They're not Giant X. They're Giants.
Okay, Giants. Yes, Giants from 2023. Icy had a rough start to his time in VCT Americas. His first couple games were not good. He played quite well in this one, but again, Furia is just giving him free kills half of the rounds. So it's very hard to be like, oh yes, this is the moment that Oxy. It's like his coming out party, right? Again, this team is more so like it's the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. I think that's always been the case for the Guard and now G2, where it's like if Trent and Jonah and Valen are all playing well and Leaf is doing his job, then they're a good team. And that's kind of what they did against Furia, but I also feel like Furia doesn't try to even take you out of your game plan. So they let you do exactly what you did in scrims that worked, and they are not going to try and disrupt it. And so against a team like Lev, it's going to be probably a come back to Jesus moment. They're going to fall back to earth, right? Lev is going to make you feel uncomfortable, and you're going to have to be able to adapt and deal with their stuff on the fly. And I have not seen that yet from G2, so I think they will probably struggle against Lev. I have no idea how to rate them against MIBR because MIBR, again, I think are a decent team. They're probably right around the same level of G2. But unfortunately, we've seen MIBR against Crew, who are unbelievably high firepower. and will just run you down. Then they played against Sentinels, who are also unbelievably high firepower and will run you down. And then we're going to see them against NRG, who are also unbelievably high firepower and will run you down.
Well, they won't run you down. They'll slowly
walk you down. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think that this Energy MIBR game is going to be interesting because after what we saw from Energy,
I'm making an hour-long video if NRG lose that game to MIBR.
Yes, please. Okay, I'll put this out there. If MIBR beat NRG, I will buy the MIBR Classic. I will do it because it'll be so good. But yeah, I mean, if MIBR can beat NRG or at least play them super close, then I think this G2 game is also a coin flip. I probably will go for... they lose to NRG and it's ugly. I think they probably lose confidence. Fuck it. I'm going to pick MIBR against G2.
Okay, cool. You're higher on MIBR than I am personally. Like, I think that I agree with you that the types of teams that they have played doesn't suit their game, and I think they have a much better chance against G2, but I still think it's lacking to the degree that I don't see it for them personally.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, even though I'm not like that's the thing when like, you know, you're coming off like G2 playing Furia, it's like, oh wow, they absolutely destroy a team. But Furia are that bad that it's like, normally when I think of like, oh, you destroyed a team, that means that, you know, you must be good because you destroyed them, so you must have played well. But I don't even know, like, it was so bad that I don't know if that actually is the case for G2. I think G2 might have just played a normal game, and that's how bad Furia were.
I'm not being hyperbolic when I say this. I think Furia would be at risk of relegation in the North American VCL. Like, they would be a bottom 2 team there.
Yeah.
They are horrendously bad.
Yeah, it's really rough. I mean, some of the decisions they make, I mean, we'll get to Fury in a second, but whatever. So yeah, I'll go G2, but I don't hate your MIBR pick. Now the game after that though would be Sentinels versus Loud. Now let's start with Sen because there isn't too much interesting to say. They beat MIBR pretty cleanly. They're playing EG later today. They'll probably win that game cleanly, and if they don't, then that will be very interesting. But I'm going to assume that they will. And so they're playing against a Loud team, though, that it is much more interesting for, because Loud lost to Cloud9. I think a lot of people, I don't know if you picked Loud, I'm going to assume you did.
I did.
And I picked Loud as well, and I think we probably assumed, like, hey, Loud, you know, first week doesn't really count, they had no time, whatever. They had a bye week, great for Loud, right? That they got the time that they needed to prepare and get ready. They had extra VODs of Cloud9 to look at. Surely they're going to fucking win this game. And they didn't. And honestly, that Icebox map, the second map, I don't think I've ever seen Loud be that bad at aiming.
They couldn't shoot back, man.
I don't think I've ever... They couldn't even shoot a fucking drone.
Yeah.
It was the worst I have ever seen a Loud team play on a map, which is so weird because it's like, it's not even the first map, you know. We often hear pros talk about like, oh, they haven't warmed up, or, you know, like the warm-up PCs aren't the same, and so, you know, it takes a bit of time. It was a fucking second map. They'd won the first map. So it's not a confidence issue. It's not like a warm-up issue. They were just shit.
Yeah. Yeah, they were really bad, and this has kind of been their bread and butter comp, like the Harbor Viper. They're kind of like the only team that's really been making this work outside of Lev is the Harbor Viper stuff on Icebox, and they do it pretty well. Like it's like one of the only reasons that I'm like, oh, you know, Harbor is still pretty good on this map as long as you play in a specific way. But they looked really bad on Icebox. Obviously, they got 13 forward. You know, it wasn't like a life game from Oxy. He was obviously playing well, but it wasn't like Oxy's dropping, you know, 35 kills and just getting 6 every round or anything like that. You know, QCK continues to be a question mark as far as his ability to, you know, play the role. Unfortunately, like, I'm just going to be honest. Obviously, he's never going to replace Osbus. It's impossible to make that comparison. But we need something from him, right? And we've seen like the good Phoenix performances. His Raze has been okay. His jet has always looked kind of questionable, and it continues to look kind of questionable. And even his raise has been, like he's doing his job. Like they won the bind game, but QCK went 14 and 18 with 4 and 6 first kills to first deaths. They won this game because Les won them the game, basically.
I mean, I thought that they looked like the worst team in this game as well.
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
that the bind that they actually maybe got a little fortunate to win. I'm very interested though. I saw you, tweeting about it. This Lotus game with the deadlock.
Mm-hmm.
So there was
Their
maybe
deadlock stuff
some
was
deadlock. Yes, well, there was 1 or 2 particular rounds where
good. Yeah, the deadlock stuff lost them the game in some spots, but a lot of the stuff that they were doing with deadlock was good, in my opinion.
Yeah, I didn't hate it, and actually I started to think like, oh yeah, there's some good stuff you can do here. I still do think like no Sentinel, like no true Sentinel Lotus is still like if Foot are playing on extreme hard mode, they're with the deadlock here. I would say they were playing on like slightly hard mode. Not as hard mode as their old comp was, but still slightly hard mode.
Yeah.
But for me, Lotus, the first half was a fucking mess. Just back and forth, and
Yeah.
everyone buying every fucking round.
Thrifty.
Yeah.
yeah.
The second half, though, personally, I thought that Cloud9 looked good in the second half. I like that was the best I thought Cloud9 had played. Was that second half of Lotus? I was like, okay, they actually look like good, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before it's been a lot of we've been in the mud with Cloud9. They've been a muddy team. But in that second half of Lotus, I thought it looked good. So I didn't hate that for Loud. But again, when you're thinking about where Loud should be, right? Like where this team should be, they should be beating Cloud9. They should be they're Loud. I'm sure in their own minds they're thinking, yeah, we should be fucking beating this team, and it shouldn't even really be that close. We should be winning 13-8, 13-7, on these maps. And instead they lost the last 2 maps, 13-4, 13-9. So that is a big worry. And so I'm wondering, where are your stocks on Loud then? Where would, if you were power ranking Americas right now, where the fuck are Loud?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of, yeah. Again, I don't want to just blame one person, but it's but I mean, genuinely, I think QCK is a problem for this team. I really do, and just because okay, so on Lotus, we have to be honest. Everybody except for Sodic was playing like dog shit. Basically, Sodic was trying to win them the game by himself. Essentially, he was the only person that was shooting back.
And he got so frustrated in some rounds that
you can see it in the stats, dude.
You'll die as well.
Have you ever seen Les have an 18% headshot percentage ever? On map number 1 on Bind, he had a 46% headshot percentage. On Lotus, he had an 18% headshot percentage. He did just over 100 damage per round. He had a 0.84 rating, 170 ACS. I mean, this is not a Les performance that we will see very often. I don't know, necessarily why it's happening. Maybe because having to make up for playing a deadlock without the Killjoy is making him play differently. I don't really know. 2Es, I mean, uncharacteristically poor on the Omen as well. They kind of just looked a little out of sorts. But man, I need to see more out of QCK, because right now it feels like everybody else in the team is kind of having to make up for his inconsistency, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on them. So as far as the ranking goes for Americas, I'm worried about them beating Crew.
Well, that's my question, because
yeah,
I'm going to assume you've locked in locked in Loud for your pick. Against Crew.
I do have Loud over Crew, yeah, but after seeing them against Cloud9, I would maybe change it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, would you change that? Would you want to change, if you could, to Crew instead? Because here's the thing for Loud, they fucking have to win against Crew
this
in
game.
G2. They have to win 2 games to make playoffs. So they literally have to win, because the other game is against Sentinels, which I'm going to tell you right now, I'll pick Sentinels, because there's no fucking way that Loud playing this way are going to beat Sen. So they literally have to win these 2 games. Otherwise, otherwise there is going to be 4 teams from Group A making it to playoffs, basically. So yeah, that's that's rough for Loud, and especially if I mean, as I said, as we've kind of been talking about, like it's that their aim was not that good,
Right.
which
Which
is
is,
not something
but
you'd think.
that's also why I'm still fairly confident in picking them over
Mm.
Crew.
But
Um,
Crew, if they do play like that, Crew will run them over
yes,
aim
yes.
wise.
But I don't think that they're going to
You think
have
it
the
was a
same.
one-off?
I think it was a particularly bad day from them mechanically,
Mm.
which I think the mechanic stuff is something
Balance it out.
that
Yeah,
generally will not be a consistent problem, like
yeah,
for a team that has proven that they have good mechanics.
yeah.
And yes, QCK, I keep harping on this guy. It's not like I hate him as a player or anything. Like I want to be clear. Like I just don't think that they have found the spot for him to get consistent value, and he's also making too many mistakes that I think they will potentially iron out. But in this game, I feel like so far Crew have been bullying people. Kesnet walks them down and shoots them. Heat walks them down and shoots them. They're not going to do that to Les. Les is not going to take that. It's not going to happen. And I feel like we haven't really seen Crew be pulled into the mud yet. We're talking about Cloud9 pulling people into the mud, right? Loud is the ultimate muddy team. Like they want you to try and get scrappy with them, and they will generally be happy in that space. And I think that Sodic's always kind of had the Latin American team's number, and I'm gonna kind of trust that. It's definitely not gonna be an easy game either way. I think it's gonna be really, really close and really, really fun to watch. But I think I'm still maybe slightly favoring Loud just because they know they have to win, and I feel like they're a championship caliber team mentally most of the time, and they'll be able to handle that pressure.
Yeah, Crew are too basic for me. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, whilst they do have good aim, they are. I mean, there's some rounds that you watch of Crew, like against EG, for instance. There's some rounds that you are like, this looks like a rank game in terms of their calling. Like, there's some rounds on Lotus where they started towards A. They see like one too many people. They're like, fuck it, let's go to B. They fucking all just turn around, fucking all just run into B. All run into B main. They get there, they're like, oh, EG are already here, fuck it, open the door, fuck it, let's go see. Like, there was literally a round where they just, like, everyone was just following each other, running around the map. Like, how often do you see that in a pro game where we're literally going A, fuck it, go B, fuck it, go C? And it worked against EG, because of course it fucking did. But yeah, they're just such a, they're just they're a basic team, and I think as long as Loud are shooting back somewhat, they should win. But my question was, can Loud beat Sentinels? And the answer is no.
Probably not. No, I don't think so.
Okay, good. C9 versus Furia. Do you want to spend any time talking about Furia anymore?
We're picking C9. Furia is probably gonna have to make roster moves after this split, and they should probably drop everybody except for maybe NZR and just let him build the team. I'm gonna be honest.
Okay. Wow, tough. Okay, NRG versus EG. Let's start with EG. Okay, because EG, they're playing at Sentinels. They're probably gonna lose. Will EG win a game this split?
It's gonna be
I mean,
tough.
they don't play in the last week, so they're gonna have to beat Sen or NRG.
That seems like a tough ask.
So the answer is probably no, unless NRG are the fucking biggest frauds since fucking Mr. Ponzi or whatever he was fucking first name is. The guy that the Ponzi scheme is named after. Because NRG, and I'm sure a decent amount of people watching this will have seen my video on NRG, and normally anytime I've made a video that is like quite negative about a team, anytime I've made that kind of video, almost always you'll get like quite a bit of pushback.
Yeah.
Right? Almost always you'll get people saying, whether it's because they're a fan of the team or whether it's because they're a fan of just the players or whatever, that no, it wasn't that bad. You're just a hater. They'll be fine, whatever. I looked through all my YouTube comments. Someone posted it on the Reddit. I looked at that.
Yep.
Literally no one is saying you were too harsh or that was too mean or I disagree.
Yep.
everyone was just like, wow, wow, that was shit. Basically, is pretty
Yeah.
much what everyone's reaction was. Like, and there's plenty of comments out there of people being like, wow, I knew it was bad, but fuck me, this
Yep.
is really bad. And that's the thing, it was that bad. Like, it really, really was that bad. And I don't know, you give me your impression of it, because I've already kind of said my piece mostly about NRG, but you give me what you think.
Yeah, I mean, I also caused a little bit of a stir by posting
Yes.
Demon One's Raze versus Jet stats, and also had quite a bit of positive feedback. There was a couple people who disagreed with me, but the majority of the masses, I think, were watching what I was watching, which is that Demon One is not a Raze player. And maybe he can become a Raze player by putting in a lot of time, but it's just blatantly obvious that he has not been grinding Raze nearly enough to be good at the character. Like, there's some characters in this game that you can pick up and play. Brimstone is one of them. Honestly, who else? Killjoy is probably one of them. You don't have to be that. Chamber for sure. Yeah, there's some characters that are just like pretty intuitive. Their stuff is easy to use. It doesn't take a whole lot of thought. Raze is not one of those. Raze is one of the highest skill cap characters in the game that rewards you for putting in hours and hours and hours and hours of mastering the utility, mastering the movement, mastering like the limit test of how far you can go. And we see this from people like, from Jing and from the master Raze players that can really get away with a lot. Ospas, Oxy, these types of players that are really, really pushing the limits of what you can do on this character. And one of the pieces of negative feedback that I got when I showed, and for anybody that hasn't seen it, Demon One is like 17-3 in first kills, first deaths on Jet, and like 7-17 on Raze. And that's a massive difference, and his stats on Jet are way, way, way high, and his stats on Raze are really, really bad. And people were like, yeah, but he did really well on Raze in week 1 against Loud, which is a good team. And, Loud was asleep for that game. Like, we know it. They were still in Ireland, basically, mentally. And if you actually watch him play the Raze, he's not using his utility. His first kills are literally just contacting in on as if he's playing a chamber, as if he's playing a Jet. His satchel movement, not good. Yes, he hit his rockets, but guess what? Rocket is easy to hit if you are not completely brain dead and you have ever played a game with projectile weapons, which Demon One has. And that's the thing. He comes from Unreal Tournament where the movement is crazy. You use like 12 different weapons every game. It's a very complicated mechanical game. And so I don't doubt that he could become a good Raze player, but it's just so obvious that he has not played 1,000 hours of Raze. And so the decision that they made where they put him on Raze, on Sunset, I mean, I guess maybe it makes sense because they want the Cypher for Victor. That's fine. But then on Bind, they put him on Raze again. When you have Victor and you have Brimstone, and Demon One played Brimstone because it's an easy character where you can just throw your utility and then you just shoot. And that's what Demon One is good at. Demon One is the best shooter in the world. I still believe that. I still believe that he has the best aim out of anybody on the planet playing Valorant. And you need to be able to utilize that. But when you're playing Raze and you're flying in and you can't aim correctly because you can't shoot while you're in the air, and you have to clear 7 angles at once, and you got to be like super aggressive and just be taking space and hope that your teammate falls up for you, it's just not the same character, and it's not the same way that Jet and Chamber are played. And so I think it's a mistake. As we keep looking at the format, this is so punishing. You can't afford to lose games. And if you're trying to develop a player into a Raze player in real time, and it's drastically hindering your performance as a team, I think that's a mistake. So I put it out there into the world. Most people seem to agree. I'm sure Chet loved that. He already has me blocked from my Xersha defense back in the day. So you hopefully didn't see that one. But regardless, I'm never getting a job at Energy. That's for sure. But I mean, they have some problems that they need to fix. And This is a long roundabout way of me saying I think there is some chance that Potter gets a revenge game against Demon One and Ethan here. There's some chance that that happens.
I don't know about that. I think EG are just that bad, to be honest. I think the bottom of Americas is really quite bad, and I think EG are down there, to be honest. But I mean, NRG. I mean, if they did lose either of these games, then maybe REG. Yeah, I mean, that would be everything's crumbling. Like that would literally be like, okay, you probably need to make roster changes. Like if you can't, if it's crumbling that bad, like okay, like just change
roster changes.
Yeah. If they lost to like MIBR or EG, like they're clearly not where they need to be, right? Like and look, like if they're losing those games, they ain't gonna win in playoffs, and they ain't making Shanghai. And then at that point, like okay, you've missed the first 2 Masters, like. I think you'd think about it. Genuinely, I do think you'd think about it at that point. Now, the question is, who would you bring in, right? That would be the problem. Phoenix. Get Phoenix back in.
You can't.
Where's that bring you back to me? Back to me. But, I mean, I'm serious. Like, if it got that bad, like, because that's the thing. That left game was, I mean, really bad. Like, there is no word. Like, it was a 0 out of 10. Like, a pure 0 out of 10. They were lucky to win 8 rounds.
They should have gotten 13 out on Bind.
It genuinely should have been at least a 12-0 half. Like it should have been a 12-0 half for sure. The way that they were playing. And look, the thing that I think, I mean, I don't even understand how they got to that point of being that bad. What worries me, like, I mean, there's a lot of things that are worrying for me. Watching that VOD on Bind, but like, and people might be a bit wondering as well, because I did mention at the start of that video I made that like I'm not including all of the rounds that I could have included, and a lot of that was on Sunset. I wrote down multiple rounds where like there are mistakes, like obvious mistakes of like, what are you doing? Excuse me, but they don't quite reach the level of like, this is fucking dog shit. Like, oh my god, what the fuck are you doing? Like, it didn't quite reach that level, so I didn't include them. Because it would look like nitpicking, even though it was clearly so bad. Right? The thing that, like, really worried me, though, was a couple rounds on Bind where, like, it looks like set plays that make no sense. Like, they're running, like that fast exec.
Pushing somebody into their
player. Like that looks like a set eco strat that we've ran, but it doesn't make none of it makes any fucking sense. Why on an eco are we smoking deep for the site when we're just flinging our Rays in who can't play Rays with a stinger? Why are you doing the deep smokes?
Right.
It doesn't make any fucking sense. Like it does, and then you're also pushing the guy from shower that you're not taking. And really, what made it very funny to me is that in multiple of those rounds, like in that example, Lev are reacting. Lev know what should be coming, but it's not.
When they crunch through the teleporter because they're like, surely they must be here.
Yes, and it's like, no, they're not here. And in that example as well, Mazzino's spamming the smoke in shower when he gets snake bited because because in his mind it's like, obviously they're coming to shower. Like they just KO knifed me and snake bited. Like obviously, so I'll spam as I'm running away because obviously like, and no one's there. Like, and so it was really funny to watch multiple times in this game Lev like react to what is the obvious thing that NRG should be doing, and they aren't even doing it. Like, oh god, it was so bad. And like I like Ethan. I mean, there was even more. Again, I think there was more examples that I didn't even show in the video. But I've never seen a man miss so many lineups in a game, or like miss his utility.
And all we could talk about with Ethan last year is how good his utility was. That's the crazy
I was like,
part.
what is he ill? Is he like, can he not see? Like, it was so bizarre. And like, there's just, I mean, the worst example, and it is the best example as well, though, is that round where the last one that I showed in the video, where they throw a KO knife showers, the KO knife hits no one, and they still fucking throw a flash for showers. But then Demon One doesn't even go through the smoke. I can only imagine, you don't get to see it on the video. I can only imagine that what happened is Ethan fucking missed the lineup again, and so Demon One didn't want to go through the smoke, even though they know that no one's in there. Like that was like the pinnacle of like what the fuck are you doing? Like, how can you play that bad? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And the whole thing for me is really, and I do think it stems back to Demon One playing Raze, by the way.
Yeah.
Like they're calling like fast rounds. Like a decent portion of these rounds are like, this is meant to be a fast idea at the start of the round, but Demon One doesn't satchel.
Yeah.
And so no one is there. And so they end up looking stupid. Because it's like, well, why are you KO flashing this if no one's gonna be like, why are you using all this utility if no one's gonna be there? If you're just walking up slowly afterwards. And I do think that stems from the Demon One problem. And look, you can talk about Raze, but he shows that playstyle on other maps as well. We've talked about it where on Breeze, he's fucking constantly lurking holds on Breeze. Like even when he's playing Jet, because that's his playstyle, right?
Yeah.
He is more in that kind of Yay mold of, Bren always talks about fucking, he just needs someone to just be flung in.
It's true.
And then he can take the space after. Demon One is much more in that mold than
Jogamo was that guy for him last year, right? And this is the thing, and this will be the last thing that we talk about for Andre, because we got to get through the rest of these games and get to China and everything. But dude, I mean, you look at Demon One's games played, he has like 3,000 rounds of chamber, and he has like 1,500 or 1,700 rounds of jet or something like that. You can't just change how your brain is wired in like a month. He doesn't interpret the game the way that you need a Raze player to interpret the game, to play Raze correctly. And there were so many rounds as I'm watching this game where Ethan is the first one in, or Crashies is the first one in on KO or Gecko, and Demon One is in the back with satchels, with Boombot, with Nade. You have to be in front. Your teammates are there to set you up, but he is in the back because that is where his brain is telling him to play. And so no matter how much, they have 12 coaches on the team. They have, tons of experience, but they're asking a player to completely change who he is as a player in the span of a month, and it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So my guess is that unless they want to miss Shanghai, they will put Victor on Raze next week. They will swallow their pride of like, we have to play this way, because they will realize that,
it might happen today.
Yeah, it's unacceptable for this team to not make playoffs, and it's a very, very bad thing for them to not make Shanghai. Like, this team is built to win a championship. That is like the stated goal of this team. And the only way that they're going to do that is if they embrace the personnel that they have and give up on this. We must have him on Raze. We must have these specifically siloed roles for our players. This is just not going to happen. It's not going to happen in the first split. And so if they want to go to Shanghai, if they want to make playoffs, they have to revert back to Victor playing like the entry duelist, because he knows what the fuck he's doing. He might not be the best Raze in the world, but he will be in front. He will be playing off the utility. He'll be taking the space, and he'll allow his teammates to come in behind him. So that's all I have to say about that.
And the thing is for NRG, like with the group that they are in, they can't afford to like lose a game. No. Like with the group they're in, you have to win 5 games to like guarantee your playoff spot.
Yep.
And so they're already 2-1. Like, they play 3 games. Okay, they'll be. I mean, are they favored for the 100 Thieves game right now?
I don't know.
I don't know. And like, it could go a certain way where, yeah, sure, maybe 4 is enough, but there is a world where 4 is not enough. And so that could cost them. Anyway, are you still picking NRG over EG?
Only because I believe they will go back to Victor being the entry. If they don't, I'm picking EG. But
okay.
Because I don't know what's going to happen, I'm going to go with energy and assume that they will be intelligent.
Okay, and then we've already kind of talked about Crew a little bit, but let's quickly talk about 100 Thieves, who dispatched of Cloud9 with confidence, with Boostio laughing at Cloud9.
Oh my god, the best round of the year happened.
Yes,
The dead mouse.
the dead mouse round. And laughing at them and calling them shit. That was very funny. And Bustio is a great addition to the scene. And I think 100 Thieves, like, I mean, you were calling for it all last year. This, I think, was your, elevated El Guy moment, talking about 100 Thieves and how they needed a Bustio. And you just see the rest of the players, like when Bustio's standing up. And let's be real, Bustio, he always has been that character somewhat, but you can tell he knows he needs to play that role for this team. Because he wasn't necessarily doing that for EG last year, right? Like, he'd stand up or something when something pop-off happened. But now for 100 Thieves, he's fucking standing up at any chance he's got, right?
Yeah.
He's standing up, he's laughing at the other team, like, and you see, like, Cryo, like, looking across and doing a little, like, little smile and stuff.
It's like, oh, I can be happy. I can have fun playing the game, right? Yeah.
And, like, you can tell that Bustio, like, he knows that he needs to be that role for the team. He needs to be the one who's fucking, calling the other team shit,
Did you see his
popping
tweet?
jokes. Yeah. Like, Cloud9, they played shit.
Like, 2-0 against Cloud9. Jesus, they're terrible.
But that's what they needed. You called it out last year, and like, I think they'll beat Crew. Well, here's my question. I think that's more interesting for 100 Thieves. Can they make Shanghai? Do you have that much belief in this team?
Ooh. Okay. So I agree. I think they will beat Crew, and I think it'll be kind of a similar thing to Crew being tested by Loud and not being able to, like, because I think that what's going to happen with Crew is they're kind of on a high right now. They've been plowing the 3 worst teams in the league, basically, as far as firepower goes. They plowed Furia, wow, big surprise. They plowed MIBR, wow, big surprise. They plowed EG, wow, big surprise. Now they're going to get a reality check against Loud, and then they're going to get a very tough must-win game for 100 Thieves, basically, where 100 Thieves are going to be prepared. They're going to have a bunch of footage on them. They're probably going to have a bit of a recipe of how to beat Crew from Loud, very likely. And I think that lines up super well for 100 Thieves to beat them. Will 100 Thieves make Shanghai is a very interesting question. Because, I mean, Sentinels are probably still the odds-on favorite to be one of the teams. Leviathan seems to look like the other team. And then that third spot, it's 100 Thieves, it's Cloud9, it's Energy, it's Loud probably, it's Crew maybe. And there is a chance that 100 Thieves is going to have wins over at least 3 of those teams already in the regular season. I mean, so I'm so hesitant to say yes, because I still don't want to pull the plug on this Energy team, but man, and I mean, I'm going to be honest. I think Cloud9 are doing some really cool stuff. Like, this team is a huge wild card for me. Like, it really just depends on what form they show up in. I think.
Did you not see Bustio's tweet about Cloud9?
I did, but Cloud9 were also on their second game of the week.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. And they got screwed by the schedule. Cloud9,
yeah, I think Cloud9, what they showed against 100 Thieves was, it was very clearly like, this team is tired. Like, I don't know if people have really been a part of one of these teams before, but Cloud9 has been grinding. They've been on an emotional roller coaster, beating Lev, grinding it out against EG, beating Loud. They're instantly back into prep for 2 days, a day and a half before they have to play 100 Thieves, who hasn't played a game yet this week. I think this is just like an unfortunate scheduling event for Cloud9. So I think that third slot is honestly going to be between Cloud9, 100 Thieves, and if Energy figure out how to play their roles correctly, those will be the 3 teams that are fighting for it. And I'd probably just do like 30% for each one of them, honestly. I really don't know. I don't have an answer for you, unfortunately.
Okay, good. That's podcasting tip 101. Don't say anything. Don't say anything that could generate any clicks. Just say nothing. Just be silent. But you're picking 100 Thieves against Crew.
Are you picking 100 Thieves to go to Shanghai?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, it's a Shanghai? Fuck it. Yeah, go. Yeah. 100 Thieves will make Shanghai.
You got to pop off more. Give us our click.
100 Thieves will make Shanghai. I'm 100% certain of it.
All right, Nade Shot, we're sending you that clip. Give TMV
Who the
Send
fuck's
TMV
this
some
British guy?
Uh-oh. Chad is calling you the jinxer extraordinaire. Maybe so. Okay, yeah, so we're picking them to beat crew, both of us. Cool, we're locking it in. Let's speed run China because I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about. I don't know. I'm so over China right now. I just want to get to the playoffs because then we can actually see some maybe interesting games.
Tech Billy. Quick, one word.
Here's the problem. Okay, I'm gonna give you a little bit of a spiel on China. You've got 2-3 good teams. You got Edward, obviously.
Trace
You've got
FBX, yeah, we got
FBX and Trace. Everybody else just a coin flip. I don't know how to rate these teams. Why did all gamers beat Billy Gaming? I have no idea. I honestly don't know. How did that happen? I guess I'm gonna take Billy because Tech lost to Dragon Ranger. I don't think Dragon Ranger is very good. Billy had a bad week. Maybe he'll have a good week. Yeah, I'm taking Billy, but
okay, I'll take
not
Tech.
confident.
We'll be different. Cool. Trace will beat DRG.
Yes.
Wolves will beat Tai Lu.
Will they?
Yes.
Will they?
Yes.
Okay. I'll take Tai Lu to be different.
EDG FPX.
Finally, a good game. Holy shit. EDG are winning.
Yeah, I agree.
The thing about EDG is they have finally realized that they have the best opper in the world on their team, and they've finally put him back in full-time duelist. Smoggy, you're back to flex where you're very good. Kong playing full-time duelist and owning, okay?
Good for you. AG beat Nova.
Yep, that'll probably happen. Sure, why not?
And JDG won a game. Billy beat JDG.
Nope, I'm picking JDG.
Okay, cool.
And I'm gonna go with I guess I'll take all gamers. Sure. Cool.
Okay, cool.
China pick'ems are done. Give me some final thoughts on just where we're at right now. How are we feeling overall about the VCT? Do we have good ideas of who's good and who's not?
I think there's a couple teams that I feel decent about. But to me, like right now, my mind kind of got consumed by NRG.
Yeah.
I just live in an NRG vortex right now of a part of me wants to see them put it together and be good.
Yeah.
But there's that part of me that's like, how low can this go?
Right. We unfortunately were teased by the collapse of the super team of Lev. So now we need a sacrifice. Somebody must take the spot.
Someone has to collapse. C9-esque of last year, that super team.
Yeah.
They collapsed very quick. They burned bright and died instantly. I wanna see something like Fnatic kind of teased us a little bit as well.
Right.
At the start of the year, but they seem to have kind of got stuff together. So there needs to be some team that people expected to be really good.
We demand a sacrifice.
Off a cliff. Yes.
We demand a sacrifice.
Yeah.
Will it be NRG? I mean, I'm so glad that we get to watch them play MIBR today because it's going to be good. It's going to be I'm locked into this game because I want to see what happens. I need to know what happens here. I think my team to watch probably this is going to be the APAC. It's going to be the trio of DRX, PaperX, and Gen G, because I think maybe these three teams are potentially looking like in the best form out of any trio of teams from a region right now. If I had to take DRX, Gen G, and PaperX and put them in a tournament against three teams from every other region, I would probably pick APAC to win that tournament.
Yeah, Pacific, this is your year, Pacific. You've got three good teams, that everyone agrees are good teams.
Yep.
Right? You only ever really had two before. So, you've added a third now. Both tournaments now are in Pacific as well.
Yep.
Or Asia, I guess. One to China. But
Make
it's in Asia.
Make it happen, guys.
So you don't have time zone buff. This is your chance.
Yep.
Make it
Don't
count.
blow it. Don't blow
it. Don't blow it. Don't know what's gonna happen when Gen G qualify to Shanghai. Apparently China can't say their name, so who knows what the fuck will happen there. That'll be funny.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll have to do like an Olympics thing where they give them a different name.
Right. They just have the non.
What is Ben B. Welcome to Ben B Gaming.
With like the flag that's just like gray, you know?
Yeah.
There's no flag.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's gonna be good. Okay. I gotta run.
No Cosmic Divide next week. No Cosmic Divide.
But I will be there in person. So chat, you can send me sign suggestions. Maybe I'll make one. Maybe I won't. I don't want to embarrass myself by making too cringe of a joke on camera.
I think it should be we demand a sacrifice NRG.
Somebody needs, we need like some sort of Valorant Reaper god with like a, ritual sacrifice knife with energy in a bowl. They did do that weird demonic video back during kickoff or whatever it was. So maybe we can repurpose that for some reason. So cool. But yeah, we'll be off next week. TMV, you'll probably be on Plat Chat at some point, so you'll still get your British yapathon. But thanks guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next episode, which will be